she felt as though Candy should have done more for her, that she should have given her flowers, that she should have sent her a card and all this stuff, you know, to send her condolences. But it was like, okay, why do you wait like a year or two to tell me this information? What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your girl JD here, back with another video. So today we're going to be talking about the Real Housewives of Atlanta yet again. This is going to be season 15, I believe, for them that they're on. 15? No, 15. Yeah, I think it's 15. Correct me, editing Jada, if I am incorrect. But I believe it is season 15 that they are on. And in the last video, I talked about the first 2 episodes. There wasn't really too much that happened, but I did my best to discuss what I thought were kind of like the highlights. I make it seem like it's positive, but it really wasn't. Either way, there was a party that Sonia had thrown for her husband Ross, and there was a little bit of an argument, just a vocal one. Thankfully, it didn't get physical, but between Candy and the new girl Courtney. Also, there was a little bit of a situation between Sheree, her new man, and also Kenya. So Kenya, of course, doesn't apologize for any of her part that she had to play within that little situation. So yeah, that's pretty much kind of where we left off, really. In these last 4 episodes, I think it was episode 3 through 6, there were some things that kind of popped off. Okay, some things that we need to talk about. So firstly, let's talk about Kenya's dance performance turn girls trip. Okay, so I think they went to Birmingham. Is that Alabama? Y'all correct me if I'm wrong on that one. I don't know if that was the Birmingham that they were talking about, but I think it was Alabama. So yeah, either way, Kenya had planned to do a little bit of a performance during, I think it was a football game or something like that, some sport. Okay, she was planning on doing a little dance routine to bring some more attention to her Kenya Moore hair care line, and I still have yet to try that. I really should. Just because it's Kenya, I really want to give it a shot. She's been talking so highly of it for so many years, and I think they actually sell it at CVS now. I really need to try her hair care line just to see, you know, just to see. But she was supposed to be performing, and I think she was heading down to Birmingham. That's when she decided to call the girlies and basically ask them if they would like to join her and basically come down there with her to watch her performance. Sonia was already like, you know, I'm making a sacrifice because I have to kind of go back and forth because I have some previous engagements and stuff that I was supposed to be doing for work. So she was already making a sacrifice just coming down there in the first place to support Kenya. But of course, Kenya was so hooked on the fact that Candy wasn't showing up, and it was just kind of like, okay, you're inviting all these women to come and support you, but you're still stuck on the fact that Candy's not here. Like, you know. But anyways, moving forward, obviously there's still a little bit of friction between Kenya and Marlo. I think there's also some things that pop off between Marlo and Monyetta. That's her name, Monyetta. And, you know, Courtney's just kind of there for the ride. I mean, I don't really think she has an issue with anybody on the trip. She just has a problem with Candy. That seems to be the only person in the group that she doesn't really gel with at the moment. Obviously, they're all heading down to Birmingham in this truck, and they get to the hotel, not impressed by Kenya's choice of hotel at all. These bougie ladies, okay, nothing ever seems to be good enough. Always making fun of how each other decides to host their girls trips and stuff like that. But if you think about it, and if you watch the episodes, it wasn't really much of a girls trip. They end up later that night going to some type of charity event, but they get kicked out because of the cameras, and everyone was just complaining about how ghetto it was. Kenya decides to go to her room because I think her daughter Brooklyn had came down to be with her around that time. I think she was sleeping, but you know, Marlo comes down to the room with all the rest of the girls, and she decides to start banging on the door, but Kenya wasn't answering. So Marlo decides to start yelling. It's late at night and she's just banging on the door. So Kenya opens the door and she's just like, what is wrong with you? You know, like, why would you do that? So yeah, she at the end of all that was just like, you know, y'all could just leave. On a phone call with I think Sheree or Monyetta, she was just like, you know, if y'all not really in my inner circle like that, like y'all could just leave, just go. I would rather y'all not be here. And Sonia, she was the first one to take offense. She was like, yeah, I'm the one making sacrifices to be here. You don't have to tell me me twice. I'ma go home. The night was ending really badly, and I feel like most of the trips and things and activities that Kenya tends to plan, they tend to crash and burn because I feel like Kenya is not a good host at all. The fact that these women keep going on these trips to support Kenya and all that stuff, it's just like, y'all know already Kenya sucks at hosting. Like, terrible, okay? So the fact that they expected more is just wild to me. Wild. But anyways, during this time that they're in the lobby, Marlo tries to slam a really heavy door on Monyetta before she tries to come in through the doorway. And they try to make it seem as though the door was just heavy, but you could clearly see from the replay that Marlo tried to slam the door on her. Like, let's be real. She tried to close it on Monyetta. I think the other girls are just trying their best to just ease the tension, but I was like, girl, no. We eventually find out that Kenya has to be rushed to the hospital for some breathing issues. With Marlo, you know, after she finds out that Kenya has to be rushed to the hospital, like, she's so, you know, like we call it over here, sometimesy. When I say that, I mean she's just flip-floppy. You know, one day she's okay, the next day it's a whole blow up. Like, there's no in between. It's like, where is this energy coming from? So you never know what you're gonna get with Marlo. And you know, after the whole Kenya situation, she tries to make up with Monyetta, and Monyetta's just like, girl, no, like, I still don't like you like that. And Marlo's just like, you know, life is short. We shouldn't be arguing over stupid things. I'm like, Marlo, okay, we get it, but we still not friends. Like, that was the energy Monyetta was given. Like, don't touch me. But they remain cordial, okay? They remain cordial throughout the other episodes. That was just a terrible trip, terrible ending. Obviously, you know, you do hope that Kenya's okay, but she's a terrible host. Terrible. Moving on, we eventually find out that Drew got invited by Candace to actually perform at one of her concert stops in Atlanta. So Candace had invited Drew onto the stage to sing a little bit with her, and all the ladies, at least a good chunk of them, Candy, actually, yeah, I think it was everybody. Yeah, everybody was there to support Drew. It was so short. It was super short. It was kind of embarrassing, actually, that all the ladies came out to support just for her to sing some oohs and ahs and, you know, harmonize a little bit with Candace on stage, and then she just left. And even the ladies was like, if I knew it was gonna be that short, like, I wouldn't have showed up. Like, that was kind of like nothing. Even though it sounded good, it was like, okay, what else? So yeah, that was just really kind of weird. I don't know what was going on with that. But either way, the night ended up ending in a shouting match, mainly between Marlo and Drew. The other ladies, I think, had ended up going home at one point. I think during the night, okay, let me start from the beginning. During that night, when they recapped after Drew came off the stage, Drew, you know, starts asking Candy about the whole shooting situation in her, is it Old Lady Gang restaurant with Todd? They own together? No, it might have been their other restaurant. I think it was their restaurant called Blaze. There was a shooting there. I think her cousin had ended up getting shot, unfortunately, but he is okay. His arm was in a sling, but he seems okay. Drew had brought it up, and she was like, yeah, you know, Candy anyway. She was like, we're not really talking about it. We're just gonna move on. So Marlo had gotten upset, you know, a little bit in that conversation. She was like, just call it a shooting, you know, like, it's a shooting. It was a shooting. And Drew kept saying, no, like, just say situation. Shortly after that conversation, Drew and Marlo end off the night by themselves, talking to each other. And Marlo is just trying to stress the fact that her nephew was shot, I think, a year or two before. He used to work for Candy. It was just a whole thing. I think Marlo was upset that it seemed as though Drew was kind of pussyfooting around the whole shooting situation, referring to it as a situation instead of what it was, which was a shooting. It almost felt as though she was just trying to, you know, make Candy feel safe, I guess. But I think with Marlo, she feels as though the ladies treat Candy like she's some type of princess that needs to be held up on a pedestal. But when it comes to Marlo, it's like they use all type of language. They bring up her criminal past. I think she'd actually, unfortunately, cut somebody's face yeah, it was a lot. But yeah, she was, I think, in jail for a little bit for that. She did serve a little bit of time. Ladies, every chance to bring that information up, okay? Like, if we're gonna look back on it, even before this season, they always bring up the fact that Marlo did that stuff. And even Kandi herself, which I think Bravo did a really good job this season, you know, of being messy, number one, by bringing up old footage and stuff and repeating stuff so you could see it in slow motion, right? But the thing is, I really like the fact that with the whole Marlo and Kandi situation, they talk about everything. They bring up everything. But really quickly, when it came to Marlo and Drew, Marlo kind of blew up in Drew's face. She's just like, my nephew's dead. My nephew's dead. Be like, something like that. And Drew's just looking like, what the hell just happened? Because even I was lost. As a viewer, I was so confused as to what was going on. Like, I'm just like, Marlo, what, are you okay? Are you good? You know, because clearly you are not, right? So even she, Marlo, recognizes that she had some unresolved issues with regards to grieving, like her grieving process for her nephew, because obviously she has no kids of her own. So she treats her nephews and nieces as like her actual kids. So that definitely hurt her, obviously, when her nephew had passed away, getting shot by his roommate, we find out. But this was months after I think he had left the restaurant that, you know, Kandi and Todd owned. I guess when Marlo had came over to visit Kandi, this was like a year or two back, to tell her, at first she had said it in a text and Kandi was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, you know, okay. But then Marlo comes over to the house while they're trying to pack for Candy's daughter to go for college. She's telling Kandi, obviously, a repeat of the information about her nephew getting shot. And Kandi, you know, she comes over, gives Marlo a hug, but apparently, you know, this wasn't really enough for Marlo, because it comes back up that she felt as though Kandi should have done more for her, that she should have given her flowers, that she should have sent her a card and all this stuff, you know, to send her condolences. But it was like, okay, why do you wait like a year or two to tell me this information? It's just very, again, all over the place for me with Marlo. You never know what's gonna pop off. It's really weird. Courtney tries to invite the ladies out to, you know, ease some tension, but it just ends up escalating into a screaming match between Kandi and Marlo, because Candy's like, I can't continue on with this activity with the rest of the girls until we figure out our situation. So can we go talk? It starts off really civil, but then it gets really heated. But Marlo gets accused of being really confrontational and that she was gonna put her hands on Kandi and that she's a bully. But even though they were both yelling at each other, let's be honest, at that point, like near the end, where the ladies had to come and break up the conversation, in defense of Marlo, surprisingly, I never thought I would utter those words. In defense of Marlo, she actually had her hands on her hips. It never moved. It never moved. Kandi was the one doing this the last few minutes of their conversation, putting her hands in Marlo's face. So Marlo literally remained like this the entire conversation. I watched her, and Bravo had also played that footage back because she got accused of being the person that was trying to, you know, rile things up and, you know, become physical. But it was like she never moved her hands. She never got in Candy's face. Sheree kind of came to her defense a little bit in the confessional, and she was just like, Marlo never really gets the benefit of the doubt, which, you know, let's be honest, she doesn't, okay? And I think that's really because, again, she's just so flip-floppy, but she doesn't really get the benefit of the doubt. And the ladies are always bringing up her past and what she did to people. I personally feel as though if someone has shown you that they are different and that they don't solve their problems that way anymore, then it's just kind of like, move on. Don't keep bringing that up. So it just feels as though the ladies don't really have nothing else to use as a comeback when it comes to Marlo. So overall, I feel as though if they do ever manage to come together and have a civil conversation again about this whole situation, it's probably going to be a while from now. I think Kandi, she doesn't really pop off that much, but I have seen her pop off twice already in the last few episodes. It's been more than I've seen in the last couple years and seasons of Real Housewives of Atlanta that I've ever seen from her. So it's just kind of like, what is going on? Like, you have to do a lot to get Kandi to get agitated. Kind of like that whole situation with her and Portia. You remember when Portia was lying on her and Todd? That was a thing. That was a thing. I think that, I don't think they ever really resolved their issues, to be honest. I mean, they were cordial with each other until Portia left, but let's be honest, I personally don't think they ever really fully returned back to their friendship that they had before that issue. But yeah, that's kind of how that episode ended. We also see some tension between Sonia and her sister Cherie, I think is her name. I was on a whole other note, but I just remembered I forgot to bring that up. So that's a thing, because I think Sonia's husband Ross wants to have the house now to themselves. He feels as though it's time for Sonia's parents and her sister and their nieces and nephews, it's time for them to move on, because all of them were living in the house for a time, but he feels as though it's time for them to find their own place. I saw a clip of that over on Sonia's Instagram, and people were kind of coming for Sonia. They were like, weren't you the one that told them they have to leave? And you know, like, why are you giving them all this attitude? And why do you want them to stay? Because at one point in one scene, she was like, if you don't like staying here, I'm not gonna help you find things. Because I think she was like looking for some mac and cheese to give her son or something. And Sonia was just like, nah, if you don't like being here, I'm not gonna help you look for nothing. Like, So it was obviously just like that weird sister, you know, dynamic. I don't think it was anything that deep. You have to resolve that as well. Personally, I do think it's better if you just move out. Definitely find your own place, because that's way too many people be living in one house, especially when you're Caribbean. Like, no. Y'all gotta live in separate houses. That is not gonna work, okay? But y'all let me know your thoughts on all of this down in the comments. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.